Welcome to Kevjet, the podcast. Helen von Dadelszen, communications coach, joining me from Switzerland.
Thank you so much, Kevjet. It's awesome to be here.
On this very warm day for both of us, I think.
Absolutely.
We've got
I'm
fans.
not complaining. I'm
No.
not complaining. It's a good thing.
It is a good thing. I know. If I didn't have so much product in my hair, I would look like Beyonce right now. I have fans all around me.
That could be another podcast episode.
Definitely. I'm excited to have this conversation because the first thing that comes up when we hear your name or anybody who actually knows you is present potential. Where did that name come from and why did you choose that?
That is an interesting story. As we know, the words we choose and the labels we put on things are really important. And so when I was thinking about creating this business and the work that I do, I wanted to find something that got to the heart of my philosophy around being a good speaker. And it was that everyone has the potential, and there's a bit of a play on words as well, because it's the present potential and it's presentations. So some people challenge me and say it's not present potential, it's present potential. So because I'm working with languages and communication, I think it's also fun to play with some words like that. So yeah, it's stuck, and I created it around 8 years ago now.
Nice. You grew up in New Zealand, but you live in Switzerland. Is that correct?
That's right.
So what has life in Europe brought you different? What's so different about living in Switzerland than it is from being brought up? How's your childhood been different?
Wow. It's almost like I've got two sides to my life, I think. So first, to know that it wasn't the plan to come here to Europe to even stay for a long time. I originally came over in my early 20s and wanted to see the world a little bit. As you know, New Zealand's so far away from the rest. And somehow 23 years have passed, and I've lived in Edinburgh in Scotland, Milan in Italy, and now near Geneva in Switzerland. And I think living in an international environment like I do, and with these different cultures and different languages, it's really brought a whole other dimension to my understanding of the world, the understanding of myself. So I would not change it for the world, honestly. Some people say, oh, you're going to move back to New Zealand. Don't you miss it? And sure, I miss my family and friends and the Kiwi accent. But I don't want to offend any New Zealanders, but after half my life in Europe, I think I'd get a bit bored. Just because we've got so much variety. You know, I sit around the table with friends and there are probably, 8 nationalities and at least as many languages. And that just brings so much variety and interest into the conversation and the way we are and the way we understand each other. So yeah, it wasn't planned, but it's definitely, I'm glad that it ended up this way. And I'm very happy to be living here.
That's not very dissimilar to my situation moving to London from Canada. So I think I would explain it exactly the same way you have if I were asked the same question.
Yeah.
When did you first realize that your own voice actually mattered?
Well, to be honest, I need to keep telling myself that my voice does matter to practice what I preach, because it's easy to shy away and be quieter and not share our ideas with the world. But I guess it sort of happened when quite early on in my career, I was in Switzerland. Actually, I was in Australia presenting to the board for whom I was working. And I got a kind of a hairy question, and I was able to turn that into a discussion. And I realized I'm quite good at this. You know, I'm not just at that stage, I was quite a junior person in the organization. And that was the first hint that I am good at communicating. And I think the key to that is being very audience-centric, very aware of who's sitting in front of you and what they need, rather than thinking about your own needs. And when I think about voice, I think in two parts. One is the voice, the message that you have. And the second is the voice, the instrument that we have. And because as a young kid, I learned to sing and to act and be on stage a lot, that almost became part of me. And I didn't really realize or tap into that until I started doing this work, actually. And I realized how little most people know about how to use that instrument. and how much of a difference it can make.
Definitely. Interesting that you brought up being a little kid. So that's my next question. What did young Helen wish she would become?
Well, one of my fondest dreams was to become a ballet dancer. And I remember jumping around in our home in New Zealand at the ripe age of 4.5. And so that started my journey, I guess, onto the stage. But I never had the physique for a ballet dancer. But that performance element was always there. And that really came from my family. We were all performers, all amateurs, but really that was part of our everyday. We, spent our holidays preparing for a show, spent our evenings at choir practice, etc. So that was, I think, as a young person, I didn't think of it as a career necessarily, because I know how competitive it is. But it's something that I was quite good at and was just put in front of me. So I made the most of it.
And it was fun.
Yeah, and it was fun. And that's interesting because I've come back to that, yes, through my work, but more recently through improvisational theatre. And I used to hate that as a child. I found it terribly strange and awkward and nerve-wracking, but it's exactly that I like now, the challenge to myself and to be able to trust myself, to trust that I'm going to deliver on the stage and to trust in being imperfect in a way.
Sure. Having worked in HR, recruitment, theater, event management, if you look back, do you think there ever really was a plan for where you are today?
I don't think so. I'm not one for big goals and being ambitious and reaching for something and really being focused on that. I've been very much open to opportunities as they've presented themselves. And if I hadn't done that, then I would still probably be living in New Zealand, probably a wonderful life, but not have had the trajectory that I have had. So there was no real plan, and in a way that makes me unique in who I am and what I'm delivering to my clients, right?
Sure. What's a part of this journey that you're on that people never see?
Well, one thing that they never believe is that I get nervous. Jumping on this call with you, yeah, it's a nice chat, but my heart was racing. I was like, oh, can I cancel? I deal with these every day, and you probably understand.
I do as well, yeah.
Yeah. And I think most people, just because I know how to manage those feelings and those thoughts, think that they don't exist for me, but they certainly do. And in a way, I've tried to create a way to use those as fuel for my connection and communication with others, rather than reading those signs as, don't do it, stop.
Sure.
It's scary. Don't push the boundary. Don't try to leap out of your comfort zone.
You've said that confidence isn't about being fearless. So what is it about?
Confidence is really complicated. I think it's an ambition that many of us have. A lot of people think that it's something that you either have or you don't have. But in fact, it's a constant challenge to yourself to prove that you can do whatever it is you're trying to do. And I think the key to being confident is trusting yourself and trusting that you will find a way.
I find that, like you and I, we're probably in front of people quite often. And I find people in our circle are the first to say, oh, you go and do this because you're the most confident. Like you'll go up there and do this speech or you'll ask that question. But deep down, we're like, oh gosh, why is it always me?
Yeah, it's such a funny thing. And I don't know where it really comes from. But I think we didn't talk about being nervous and that these feelings meant that we shouldn't do the thing. And so I guess this is the power of doing theatre and things when you're young, is that you learn without knowing that you're learning it, this life skill that pushes you ahead and keeps you going.
I think that little voice in my head that says, oh gosh, or you get that pit in your stomach. I think that's what fuels me.
That's it. It. Sometimes I say, someone say to me, oh, are you nervous? And I'm like, well, yeah, I'm ready. I'm definitely ready. Like my hands are shaking. That means that I care. That means that the adrenaline is there. That means that I can give it my all.
Definitely. What breaks someone's confidence faster than anything?
I think it's the voices in our head. Yeah, I think more than the feedback that you get, it's more what you're telling yourself. And so this is why I think it's so important to tune in to what we're telling ourselves and switch it up if it's not being very helpful. because we can very quickly be really down on ourselves and push ourselves down. And, we're the only ones who's going to build us up constantly. So I would say that, that soundtrack, as I like to call it, that's borrowed from John Acuff, is very, very powerful. It is like a soundtrack, the mood in the movie, right? That can really make this, the lady running away with the knife is ridiculous if you don't have the scary music behind it. It's the same. So it kind of sits in the background. We can be unaware of it, but it definitely affects our mood and the way that we show up to the world.
Why do you think so many brilliant people are absolutely terrified about speaking publicly?
Because we are not taught how to do it. And so we can become so expert, so specialized in whatever realm, and then just be expected to jump up on a stage and communicate it. But communication and the actual expertise are totally different things. And so I think it's partly because we haven't been taught. And then we have to think about the models that we see, right? And most of it is very polished. And any of it that is not polished, we say, oh, well, it was their first time, or, oh, well, they're brilliant anyway, right? So we're much kinder to other people than we are to ourselves.
It's so true. It is so true. Have you ever coached somebody who physically shook with nerves and then watched them absolutely own that room?
Gosh, yes. I remember last year I had an event, and it's a wonderful woman. I've had a few sessions with her, but she wasn't really a coaching client per se. And she's always come across as very nervous and, oh, I can't do this. She'll say these things out loud. And then she got on the stage, and my jaw was on the floor. It was literally as though she was shining brightly. And then after her 2-minute little piece that she was doing, which was unprepared and kind of not scripted, I went to join her on the stage to do some live coaching, and I just didn't know what to say. And I just kept turning to the audience and saying, wasn't that incredible? And I looked at her and she was like, but no. And she will not watch the video back. And I think that's such a pity, because she was brilliant. And if she can see her brilliance, it will hopefully start to overshadow what she's telling herself, right? And the feelings. Because you can say you were brilliant. You say, oh, no, but I was really nervous. Who cares, right? It depends what's delivered in the end, not what's happening internally inside of you.
It's so true. It's so true. I've had so many guests who have come back to me and said, oh, my gosh, my friends or my family have watched the episode. They absolutely love our conversation. And I say, well, did you enjoy it? Yeah. And they say, oh, no, I can't watch it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so interesting. We're our best, worst critic, and we can be really, really harsh on ourselves. But to be honest, not many people like listening or watching themselves on video. It's a very unhuman thing to do, really, isn't it? It's something that we've created that we weren't designed to see ourselves back. So it's a very artificial thing, and all we see is the negatives.
Definitely. Your keynote talks about rewiring the brain. Can we actually rewire confidence?
I don't think the aim is to rewire confidence. I think confidence is a mix of how we feel and how we sound and trusting ourselves. So in fact, the rewiring happens in the head, as we've said. So rewiring those soundtracks that we have, plus practicing and recreating habits, whether they're vocal or body language, and also the words that we use that give out signals of confidence to others. And then we get the feedback that you seemed confident. And if we take that in, then we will eventually feel more confident. But I don't think confidence is something that we can attain and it's a one and done. And I'm confident now. It's a constant challenges. Depends on the day, depends on the context, it depends on the content. It can depend on so many things, the weather, right? How well you slept. And that can always shift your confidence in a way, or how you feel in the moment. But knowing that you can deliver in any case, so trusting yourself that you have the tools and that you will find a way, that is really the key to confidence.
Is it sort of like something that you study for your whole life, whether it's your job or a hobby, and you know you can be thrown into something blind, but you know you're gonna be amazing at it. But then the difference would be is if your crowd or your audience is completely new to you, isn't it?
Yeah. I think it's partly the situation constantly shifts. And so we never really know how things are going to go. Even if you're an actor on the stage, your script, you can know your script and things, but little things can shift and that can totally put you off. So throughout all of that, you need to be secure in yourself, trust yourself that you will find a way and you will deliver. And sometimes it will be better than other times. But yeah, so it is the context definitely that can shift things a lot.
Yeah. What's the biggest act of self-sabotage that you see?
I think the biggest act of self-sabotage is not doing. It's actually the absence of doing something.
I love that answer. I love it because it's such a simple answer, but it makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So we stop ourselves before we can even see how well we do, or even fail, if we want to say fail, and learn from it, right? So it's keeping ourselves safe, keeping ourselves within that famous comfort zone and not trying. That is the biggest thing that's going to sabotage yourself. That is how you stop yourself from growing and learning.
Yeah. You often say that your voice is your calling card.
Mm-hmm.
If someone's listening to us today, what is their voice saying about them before they even finish a sentence?
Well, it depends on the person's voice, doesn't it? So the voice can turn any words from something inspiring to something disdainful even, right? So what I mean by that is that when we speak, we're sending messages that go beyond the words, right? So the idea is that you should be intentional about how you want the other person or people to feel. So, for example, if I want to come across as really nice and kind and warm, then I'd probably speak a little bit more like this, right? And that can be appropriate in some circumstances. But for example, what I want to get across, which is true to me, every part of this is true. It's not acting, but I allow different elements of me to come out. So in this podcast, I want to come across as engaging and interested. And so I have more energy in my voice. I have more vocal variety in my pitch. I speak a little bit quicker and I use less air, or I allow less air to escape. So that's what I mean by your voice being your calling card. You are sending signals that people can't say, well, they're doing this with their voice. No, they feel how you sound and interpret that before and beyond the words that you use.
I love that explanation. It makes perfect sense. And anyone who's listening is going to be like, gosh, she's good.
I don't know about that. I've just done this for a long time. And it's like I've tuned the ear to different things. And so I can speak like this as well. And I can be very serious and a little bit more monotone, which can be appropriate as well. And all I'm doing, it's still my voice, it's still my words, but all I'm doing is playing with the dials of my voice to create different things for the listener.
Sure. Why do we hate hearing ourselves?
Well, we hate hearing ourselves because when we're speaking, we don't hear ourselves how other people hear us, right? So we've got these different filters because we're in our own head and we're hearing things as a rebound. And so when it's very disturbing then to hear a recording of ourselves, because 90% of the time we're listening to ourselves in our head. And then when we hear ourselves outside, it sounds totally different. My Kiwi accent is always much stronger than I would like it to be, honestly. Not that I'm embarrassed of it, but sometimes I think, oh gosh, you need to turn that down. And or I speak too quickly and I think, oh, why did I speak like that? So it's totally human. I think it's totally normal. And again, it's not something that we were supposed to ever hear, I think.
Sure. Can we completely transform our voice?
Yes. With a lot of work, you can. Yeah, you can. You can lower your pitch. So we all have a range, for example, and we get stuck in 2 or 3 notes usually that we use. I've lowered my pitch through some work. Actually, wasn't consciously trying to lower my voice, but through the vocal work that I've done, I did come down a couple of notes, and I've done that with clients as well. The voice is a habit. And so once you identify what you want to work on, you can change it quite simply. So a lot of people, for example, need to speak more clearly and slowly. And there's no magic to that. I can't say, do this and suddenly you'll be able to do it. No, you have to remind yourself to slow down constantly, get into the habit of doing that anytime you remember, and then it becomes a new habit. Same as adding more vocal variety. Right? You can all do it. People aren't stuck with their vocal cords just on one note all the time. They've just forgotten the variety that they used to have when they played in the playground and they were squealing, right? And so we cage our voice into something that's quite limited. And over time, through repetition, we just create a certain voice. But we can definitely change it if we want.
Can silence be one of the most powerful communication tools we have?
Yes.
I love what you did there because I do that.
Absolutely. The pause is like a power move. We always want to fill the silence with words or non-words, those filler words. But sometimes just giving that pause is so powerful. It gives space for people to think, to make the connections in their own brains. And it can also help us highlight our message by pausing before and or after a message. So yeah, that can be really powerful. The biggest challenge with the pause is that a lot of people think if they pause, they will lose control of the conversation. Someone will jump in. And that indeed, it can be a challenge, especially when we're doing things online. But there are also ways of controlling that or avoiding other people jumping in through framing and other things like that. But I love the pause. Most people are scared of it.
That's true. What's one conversation that has changed your life forever?
Wow, it's a tough one. There are so many of them. The one that comes to mind is the moment when my husband and I separated. I should have prepared for that better. I could have done much better in that moment to have controlled a little bit more the narrative that followed. Right? It was a little bit haphazard, and well, maybe partly because I hadn't started doing this work when I did that. And if I was to do it again now, I think I would have been much kinder, much more strategic in a way. But yeah, that's a personal one, but that moment sticks in my head and I go back to it and I think, gosh, that could have been done in such a kinder, more strategic way.
It's interesting because a lot of people answer questions reactively. So how would you coach somebody who that's their everyday? They just react before they think of what they're going to say. How would you coach somebody into taking some more time into thinking about their response or even the question?
So I think there are two things here. The first one is to take some time before you get into the situation to think about your intention. And what I mean by that is not what are you going to say or what are you going to ask, what are your key messages, but rather what do you want the other person to think, feel, or do? Because communication is a two-way street, right? It's not about what we say. That's a little part of what we're aiming for. It's in fact what the other person hears. And so by having some preparation to think, okay, I'm going into this difficult conversation. I want this person to feel like I care about them and that there is a way forward, for example, right? I want them to think that I'm on their side, right? Or this is my boundary and I care about whatever it is. So that's a little bit of preparation and it doesn't take long, but I think it's worth doing. And then maybe the conversation doesn't even go that way, so it doesn't matter, but at least being prepared for that. And then in the moment, I think we go back to the pause. We have a tendency to want to jump in to answer our questions without any reflection whatsoever. And that means that we are reacting rather than responding. So if we take a moment to pause, to breathe, to regulate our nervous system, that can change everything. And I think even realizing that you can take longer than you think you can to respond, it can be really powerful. Someone asks you a question that matters. If you sit back and think about it, the person doesn't think worse of you. They think, gosh, they are taking the time and the effort to give a good response, to give a considered answer. And that is valuable. And so they are going to feel more valued as well.
Yeah. How has coaching other people changed you?
They say that we only teach what we need ourselves, right? So I am constantly learning about myself through my clients and through what I'm teaching them. And this is why I also try to practice what I preach. But for example, I don't as well as I should. But yeah, it's taught me so much about how fascinating humans are, how important communication is in our connection with one another. And we all have really special gifts inside us just from who we are and the experiences we have and the way we see our world. And that inspires me to keep doing the work that I do to help people get those messages out to the world, because they are only so valuable if they stay in their head.
It's so true. And it's all about, a conversation is all about how you made somebody else feel, I believe. It's that feeling that somebody walks away from after your conversation.
Absolutely. And that's really important because we need people to think and feel something before they do something, right? Often you think, oh, I want to make a sale, or I want to, get this out of this conversation. But to get the do from the person, the action, they need to feel and think something.
I love that. They might not always remember what you've said or done, but they always remember how you made them feel.
Yeah, Maya Angelou. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So
love
true.
It's so true. Imagine if every listener has one conversation this week that could change their life. What's one thing you'd tell them before they walk into that room?
Before they walk into that room, prepare. For some reason, we think that good communicators are just naturally good communicators. But as you'll know, in preparing these for these conversations, it is in the preparation.
Mm-hmm.
And what I would add to just preparation, like we discussed before, in terms of what you want the person to think, feel, or do, it's also, especially for the people that I work with who speak multiple languages, it's actually getting the words out before. So take a moment to see what it sounds like when you say the words out loud. That can make a huge difference. But putting the different emphasis on a word, slowing down, having more melody, this can make a huge difference to any conversation. But I would say the most important is really preparing to think about what the impact you want for the other person is.
When your story is eventually told, what do you hope people will say Helen gave them?
I like, it sounds a bit cheesy, but I have been called a confidence cheerleader before. And, in New Zealand, we don't really have cheerleading, but I have this image of these American films and the pom-poms and stuff. And I love the idea that people would say, she was there for me. She helped me. I knew I could hear her encouraging voice in my head, and that I felt that I was behind them and with them during that challenging moment.
How do you vocally accept a compliment without just saying thank you?
Well, I think just saying thank you is already pretty good.
It is pretty good, but I always feel like it's kind of like the end of that conversation.
Yes, so I think this is a challenge. And I remember when I was a teenager, my girlfriends and I decided to stop being dismissive with compliments. And so we sort of made a pact. And I remember that so strongly, so I really like your hair. You say, oh, yeah, no, I forgot to wash it this morning. So we just say, thank you. So I think that is actually really, really powerful. But maybe if you're worried about it stopping the conversation, you could think about a follow-up question for them, right? So you could say, thank you. And why do you like that? Or how do you do the thing? Whatever it is. So would you like to see more type thing, like opening that conversation to throw the ball back into the other person's court. So that would be one way. But honestly, I think sometimes the most powerful thing that we can do is just accept the compliment and with a big smile, a genuine smile. And that can change a whole dynamics, in fact.
Definitely can. I'd like to kind of move into Kevjet's quick fire questions.
Sure.
Tea or coffee?
Coffee, 100%.
New Zealand or Switzerland?
No. Oh, Switzerland.
Sunrise or sunset?
Sunset.
A book or a podcast?
Podcast.
What is your favorite word?
Well, that's a hard one. Intention.
What's one word you wish people would stop using?
I have a phrase. Without further ado. You hate that?
Well, there was one I thought of yesterday that was really good. When they say not to be rude.
Yeah.
Before they tell you something very rude.
Yeah, or to be honest is also just as bad, right? It's like, what? You weren't being honest before? Oh, no.
It's so true. What's the best compliment you've ever received?
Gosh, see, my confidence and my compliment book is a bit blurry for me at the moment. What's the biggest compliment? A couple of months ago, I was running a workshop for teenagers on confident body language and voice. And one of the students raised their hand and said, "Miss, have you ever thought about being a vocal actor?" And I was like, yes.
That would be a great compliment. Exactly.
Especially from a teenager.
Exactly. Biggest communication pet peeve?
Being dismissive, saying, "Oh, well, I'm not a good communicator." Well, work on it then.
Just giving up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fill in the blank. I wish more people would.
Dare to feel the fear and do it anyway. To act.
Who inspires you?
So many people. I guess I'm at a reflective time in my life, and especially because I'm going back to New Zealand for a visit next week, possibly my parents. I realize now, having teenage sons myself and them having 5 children, how well they did, honestly. And that's hugely inspiring. And then, of course, their careers as well have been amazing, and just their approach to life, which has brought me so much. There's no way I would have got to where I am without them. So I guess it's my parents, Eileen and Mark.
Love it. That's a great compliment to them.
There you go.
One thing you wish every child was taught?
To get up on a stage. I think if everyone got to do some proper drama, that would be amazing. The skills that I learned as a kid have kept me in good stead all my life. So yeah, that's much more interesting than learning to play the recorder or the xylophone in class. Is to have some proper, how to stand on the stage.
Where is your favorite place to switch off?
I really value my morning walk with my dog, sometimes with my partner, but often on my own, reasonably early, like around 7 a.m. And just that routine is really good. And my favorite walk is down by the river, little stream. Yeah, where I force myself not to plug in anything, podcast or whatever. And I just, with nature, with my own thoughts, hopefully a little bit fresh in the morning. Yeah, that's my favorite.
What's one thing you're still working on?
Just one. I am really consciously working on that soundtrack that I was talking about. I was doing that this morning on my morning walk with my dog, saying some nice things to myself, because this is lifelong work, and the unkind messages that can creep in constantly there in the background, and I need to keep them quiet so that I can be the best version of myself.
Sure. If you had a billboard that the whole world could see, what would it say?
It would probably be a question around the lines of, what are you going to do today that scares yourself a little bit? I think I'd find better words than that out of the bulletin board, but something around that.
Finish this sentence. Courage begins when
we act.
What's something people always get wrong about you?
I think I'm from Australia. Do you get that? They think you're from America?
Always.
Yeah. And I say, no, I'm much more exotic, much more interesting than Australians.
If you could whisper one sentence into every person's ear before they even walked on stage, what would you say?
You can do it.
And finally, what does no filter, all heart mean to you?
No filter, all heart. That's about being true to yourself. It's that, being authentic, which is a little bit difficult to grab onto. But it's really being true to your values and being able to express them in a way that feels genuine and non-performative in a way.
I really enjoyed this conversation. I wish I could speak to you longer. And I have a feeling my listeners are going to feel the same way. So how can they find you?
So I'm most active on LinkedIn professionally, but I also have a YouTube channel, which is slowly growing. And I have a book that I put out last year called Courageous Action, which is all about learning how to become more confident, one small step at a time. And you can find that on Amazon or through the website courageousaction.ch.
And all of those links will be published on the description of this podcast as well. Thank you very much for your time, Helen.
Well, thank you, Kevjet. That was lots of fun.